All right, thanks everyone, and thanks for the food for thought on the private equity, brands and agencies. I found that fascinating. And I'm sitting between two founders, and so I'll just introduce you guys. So Deirdre Mc Gettrick is CEO and co-founder of YouFurnish.com, which Kat mentioned, and Rob Pierre is an investor and advisor in the company and an exited founder of Jellyfish. We've got about 20 minutes for this discussion about founding and growing a brand. And I will be trying my best to open up for audience questions, so have that in mind at the end if we have time. And put your hand up and one of our roving mics can find you. I'm going to get right into it. Both of you founded your own businesses and grown those businesses. And Deirdre, I'll start with you. Can you explain how you both kind of came together, what that journey was like, and then maybe, Rob, you can fill in the gaps?
Sure.
Yes, so I suppose I never set out to found a business, I think is the first thing that I would say. It came across a consumer need. I was sort of joke consumer number one. But I think what's really important is that your network, and it doesn't matter who you are, what stage of your journey that you're on, I've been able to reach back into my network, and that's actually how we came across Rob. It was actually my co-founder who had sold Rob a product probably way back when, in the early days of Jellyfish, and we met at an event in the Times.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of came on board with YouFurnish. How did that come about?
I did. Well, yeah, Ray spoke to me about what he was up to. He'd moved on from the product that he sold to Jellyfish. And as he told me about it, I think it was ticking some of the boxes that we were talking about earlier. A disruptive product. It actually added value in the ecosystem. I felt it had lots of potential. It was harvesting so much data. It was, again, providing us a more niche and deliberate response to a market need. And yes, you could get search, Google can provide a service, but it's very self-serve and it's very generic and it's all things to all people, whereas this was absolutely a product that I felt was going to add lots of value. And it will be disruptive, it will have growth, and yeah, so it was very appealing to jump on board and to support.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that we talked about on the call was trying to figure out, like, what's the difference between a brand like YouFurnish, which is bringing in different retailers, and also trying to speak to that audience. And I think, Rob, you were speaking about, like, when you're trying to grow a business, there's these sort of kind of tricky, you have to get retailers or partners on board and audiences. There's a kind of loop there. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a catch-22 where you can't really attract the partners, the brands, the suppliers if you don't have the momentum and the traction and the audience. And so there's almost this need, again, to build a brand that's got an addictive personality and is providing a genuine service, and then to create a community. I think there's a lot of conversation around audiences versus communities, and communities engage, communities get together, they talk to each other, and they really get behind a brand, and I think it's got more sustainability. So my advice is always think about what is your personality, who are the audience and the demographic you're trying to attract, what is the actual problem or opportunity that you're catering for, and then start building a community through all of your either correspondence, marketing, and any place that you expose your brand.
And for Deirdre, I suppose, with how do you describe the personality, to Rob's point, of YouFurnish, or like what's that the problem and the kind of audience that you're trying to reach mostly, and what were when you're trying to build that brand, what were the kind of milestones or the obstacles that you found?
Yes, I think the personality of the brand is sort of being a creator, because everybody wants to create these amazing spaces in their homes. We see great inspiration, whether it's online on Pinterest or whether you're out and about. I always say I love the Ham Yard Hotel designs, and then you're thinking, I'd like that in my home. So it was about empowering consumers to create these great designs in their own homes. And often, you know, that design will be slightly tweaked, so it'll have different functionality, or it will have different price budgets that they might be able to go after and spend in terms of recreating the look. So it was very much around, I suppose, creating empowerment, consumers get stuck in this decision paralysis where, oh, I've seen a nice chair, but there might be a better one out there, so I'm not going to purchase it. I'm going to continue my search. And then you get a bit frustrated and despondent, and you leave the market, and then you come back. So it was really about giving people the confidence to be able to go out and say, here are all the items in market. You go do you, whatever your design is that you want for your home, and create that space that you can feel proud of. I think that is it. It's like, it's very emotive. You know, I sort of often compare it to Rightmove, because when we go to see a home, it doesn't matter who's selling it, what estate agent it is. It's about how does that home make us feel, and how do we, you know, believe we'll be perceived as well from family and friends that come to visit. So furniture is a very similar sort of style purchase consideration journey.
That's interesting. It kind of goes back to what Bob was saying in his presentation about how it's emotional over rational. There are elements of both, but it is more of an emotional purchase because you live with it every day, and it was going to last for you, hopefully years if it's like a big piece of furniture.
Exactly. High ticket, long life, and the emotiveness. And we always say price is a factor, but it's not the driver. So you could have the same coffee table that has gold versus chrome rings on it, and you will pay £100 more to have gold because gold is what I want. I'm not buying something just because it's cheaper on sale. Obviously, if I've got the exact same thing for sale, then price is maybe more of a determinant of who I buy it off. But on the whole, it's very driven by the aesthetics. I'm drawn by the eye. It's very visual. It's all the pictures that people start searching on. And then you get your sort of dimensions and price, and all those other things then follow.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one question I had was, as a new brand, how do you decide what to prioritize when you're like, right, we want to grow, we want to be a category disruptor, and we want to go after new audiences? What do you prioritize, and what's in that decision making? I suppose, Deirdre, I'll go to you and then...
From my perspective, I suppose the role that I always see that I play in the business is I'm the consumer, and I need to keep the consumer front and center around where do we actually, you know, create new products? What are we actually bringing to the fore in terms of new technology that we're releasing that will help people to be able to search and find products? You know, you always have these sort of conflicting elements within the business. Do you go after profit because that's what everybody wants in terms of the financial side, but actually that could be wrong because that could be a business decision that would actually hurt some of the consumer initiatives that you could do. So you're always balancing them up, and we're at a stage of business where, you know, we're in growth stage. We are ideation through to creation through to growing it. So yes, we balance off profit, but profit wouldn't be the focus for us right now. It would be all about how do we solve the consumer and make sure that we're getting them sticky, that they're returning, that they have a great experience, and they're getting that sort of love of the brand. So that's what I prioritize.
Mm-hmm. And Rob, for you, what would you prioritize to grow a business or a brand? Yeah.
Well, so when in the agency world, when I was running Jellyfish, we ran by the philosophy that advertising is the monetization of attention. And so wherever the eyeballs, where people are paying attention, it's changing, it's very fragmented, and you've got very little time. And one of the things that attracted me to YouFurnish is that, yes, you've got the website, and it does things very differently. It adds lots of attributes that you wouldn't get on the retailer's websites or on Google. It helps you search. It's got so many features. But the most important thing is that I felt it's more of a platform than a website. And that in the old days, you used to work with attribution, and you had to chase somebody around different places across the web or across the internet. So whether that's social platforms, websites, blogs, and then you try to work out where's the best value. Whereas in actual fact, nowadays, if you treat YouFurnish as a platform that has all of these features and support, then you could put YouFurnish in front of the user wherever they are. So the priority for me is how can you take the proposition to where the person is and give them the best experience right there and then, instead of trying to get them to navigate around and then retrospectively measure where all the value is coming from. That would be my recommendation. Find where do your audiences and your communities congregate, where do they pay attention, how do you get the proposition where they are so that they can interact with it in a beneficial way.
And simplify that journey and how you speak and the message. That makes a lot of sense. And I think the last time we spoke, Deirdre, we were talking about 3 pillars of growth as the sort of next stage in YouFurnish's future. Do you want to speak to that a bit more?
Yeah, I think we try and keep simplicity at the core in terms of how we look at everything across the business, and then each core obviously gets much more sophisticated as you go into the detail below it. But from a high level, it's about how do you design the best product in market? Because if you've got an amazing product, consumers will come back, they will use it again. Then when you have your product that you feel this is consumer fit, how do you actually grow those consumers that you're bringing to the site? So that is going to meet them, as Rob said, where are they? And then the third one is how do you then monetize the product and the experience and the consumers that you have? So it's about product, growing users, and then growing revenues and profitability.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure a few people in this room would be interested, so you're speaking about product in such an uncertain economy. How do you keep like a business and a product viable as it is growing? And it is a difficult balancing act, as you both described. Maybe, Rob, if you wouldn't mind, like from your perspective, and then maybe Deirdre, you can add on to it.
Yeah, I think, as we say, it's a hygiene conversation around AI and how technology and automation. AI is a much more sophisticated version of automation, and we've always looked at when you productize something, what is the combination of human resource, technology and process that you need to deliver the best experience on an ongoing basis. So I would sort of break it down and try and work out how can you introduce as much of the technology and automation to support the human resource so that your human resources are working on the creativity and the innovation and actually just utilizing those tools and platforms. And also, again, it just all starts with what is the business proposition. My advice is always stay reasonably niche, make sure that you're working on the right profile of people that you're targeting, that you start at least in a geographic location that you can actually become the best or the most well-known and get traction in that way, and then start to think about diversifying and expanding. So it's about making sure that you sustain, you become sustainable, and I often talk about the JPEG versus vector. So all the creatives in the room know that a vector image is one that you can continue to scale and it doesn't lose its integrity and quality. A JPEG is pixelated. And so everything that you do, I would advise that you think in terms of a vector, and that if this were to expand, have I got the infrastructure? One of the worst things about business is that the best small businesses are the ones that can fail.
Okay.
Because you could become a nice lifestyle business, but it's only when you get that huge retailer, you're basically, or you've gone viral and you suddenly get a load of traction and you haven't built the infrastructure to deal with it and to scale, and then you have cash flow issues and you don't have the right resources. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, there is a high percentage of businesses, small businesses, when they are founded, that do fail. But Deirdre, do you have anything to add to that in terms of what... how do you keep it viable and sustainable? Any advice?
I think it's been really close to the customer as well, and going and testing and learning with them, asking their opinions, and then overlaying that with the data. I think data as well is really, really helpful, but there's also an element of your gut. Why is the data telling you this? Don't just falsely follow data without any questions around it. But I think it's very easy to get caught up as well, even with consumers and getting feedback. And if you ask somebody, would you like X? Yes, of course, we'd all like everything that we sort of put in front of it. And they say, all right, well, it's already in market and these brands use it. Do you use these brands? Yes. And do you use that feature? No. So do you really want it? So how do you then use that in tandem to say, right, well, this is the feedback that we're hearing, but overlay it with the data to give you that full picture? Because you can be very busy going off and doing what you think is right, or ideas and following through, but are you actually solving the problem and adding value?
And asking the right question almost. Yeah. I'm just going to, in the last few minutes, open up for any questions from the audience. If anyone does have a question for either Deirdre or Rob, raise your hand. Oh, got one here. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind lending your mic, if you could just tell us who you are and which company you're from and your question, that'd be great.
Thank you. So my name's Sonia and I'm from JC & Co, so out of home media. We're currently working on a programme that targets sort of Gen Z audiences. So in terms of you, Furnish, what are you doing to target that younger generation to make sure they are the consumers of the future?
Who wants to take that one? Is that for Deirdre, for Rob? Both?
Do you want to start, or you want me to?
You can go first.
Okay, so on the subject of communities, basically what we believe is that all the different platforms have different features and benefits, and whether that's they've got a specific audience, a specific format, or a specific data, as an example. So as an example, if we're looking at augmented reality and we can use some of the features that Snapchat would provide, this is what we're looking into, collaborations. We're also TikTok right now are trying to use the platform for searching, for information gathering, for research, etc. So we are looking at collaborations with influencers within the interior environment to make sure that they then use TikTok and that we have some way of collaborating and then reaching that audience. Probably we're going to partner at Jellyfish. One of the biggest secrets, not even a secret, but success factors was our collaborations. We treated Google, Amazon, Meta, Snap, TikTok, you name it, we treated them like our best customers. And what ends up happening is you understand what is important to them, strategically, what are they trying to achieve, and if you can align with them, then by proxy, you get the benefit of their brand equity, their trust, and their exposure. And so that's what we will be doing. We will be talking to the actual platforms as well to see whether we can collaborate and access that audience.
Anything to add, Deirdre?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one, because when we started as well, we were very much focused on your core customer, and rather than building complete breadth, is how do you build that depth to begin with so that you can build that community. And typically the community that's interested in furniture is people that have bought a home. So they would be slightly older, but of course then as you grow and you know that you're working for your depth, that's when you then begin to bring in the breadth of new audiences and future audiences as well.
Super interesting. We've got about a minute left. Got another question just behind.
Hi, I'm Son, the founder of RWEC and RWEC Studios, agency and content creation business. Just as a question for Deirdre and perhaps you as well, Rob, but just hearing the topic and discussion that we had prior to stepping up there with a focus on the economic climate, Asia specifically, any plans for expansion into that area of the market? Correct me if I'm wrong, but are you just UK only at this moment, is that right? Just hearing what's going on, do you have any plans to expand into Asia?
So we are in the UK to begin with as our first market. We've very closely watched a lot of other markets around international expansion, because once you've built your technology, you can literally drop that into a new market, and then you onboard your supply of the retailers and build a brand awareness amongst consumers. So I sort of think it's very similar to Airbnb are going to a new market. They need homes and they need customers. So there's huge opportunity there in terms of elements out there. So what we're very focused on is making sure that you do a really good job in the UK so that you've got solid foundations to then bring it into new markets. So TBD on whether that would be west or east.
I think that's a good spot to leave it on. Thanks so much for your questions, and thank you both for chatting to me on this panel, and I'll hand it back to Kat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys.